And we are live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to Homeroom, where today we're going to try to answer the question: is math racist? Is the grading policy in a school system worthy of criticism? Is it equitable? So, as we get to the end of the school year, perhaps this is the critical question because many of my fellow educators, formal teachers, I should maybe narrow that group down, are, putting together their final grade book. They are, how do I say, evaluating the students' performance over the course of their year. And some students will pass that perhaps don't deserve to pass. And some students will fail because, according to some, they are in a um, racist system of the education system is racist. Therefore, students will not be able to pass their classes for a variety of reasons. So we are going to, hey Monica, let me invite you up. I'm going to cook a little bit, and then maybe we can get into this. Oh, this will be fun with Miss Monica here. I just want you to know. In fact, let me do the appropriate thing here, and uh, hold on one second, everybody. This link always eludes me, so I appreciate everybody's patience while I pull this together. Click. Bing bang boom tends to be my way of speaking on it. Let me pin this link. Okay. In case, good morning, ma'am. In case you cannot join the conversation, it's a no pressure space to come up onto the stage. You can certainly check it out on the YouTube live stream. So I just want you to be informed about that. And I would appreciate your support over there if participating isn't available for you and you appreciate a more visual experience, then slide on over to the YouTube channel. It's a few seconds, about 6 seconds behind, so it's hard to be in both spaces at the same time. Okay, so we have been engaged as a community, and for those of you who may just be catching this replay for the first time, we are engaged in this multi-part series on diversity, equity, and inclusion. I have challenged myself with this 5-week commitment to stream live 3 days a week, plus my formal 2-hour conference on Sunday, to demonstrate some consistency and try to let the momentum of Educators House capture a broader audience. So I'm simulcasting on YouTube now to capture more people that way. And the level of consistency, I hope, will demonstrate to the community that this is going to be a safe place for folks who are concerned about what's really going on in education to come together and talk about it. Educators House is not about right or left, but about the future of education. And if you care, whatever side you may be on, if you authentically care, then this is a safe space for you. And I think it is the only way that we are going to improve education is if we get into the same room and really talk this stuff out, battle it out, and let the battle of ideas reign supreme. So this idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion has been a deep one. And what can I say? We've done some packing. We've done some packing and some unpacking. And this is going to be the last week of our series. And then we're going to ramp up on screen time and child development. So that's going to be another multi-part series, and we're really going to get deep. Roblox and Fortnite are on my list of things to be concerned about. Social media and the algorithm are also on my list. And then, of course, artificial intelligence and all the capacity there. I think there are some significant implications as it relates to the traditional way that children have been raised. So if you come across any clips that are interesting in that space, feel free to drop them in my box so that I can add it to our collection for analysis. So I'll just start with that. What else can I say? In terms of ground rules for Educators House, or the culture here, it is centered on the voice of the community. So if anything that you're present to, those of you that are in the live conversation, I'm happy to center you, but I also want to move an agenda forward. because we've already unpacked what diversity, equity, and inclusion looks like from a historical perspective. Matter of fact, if I can digress, since Monica's here, I'm guessing that you know Marshall. Marshall was supposed to come through and be my featured speaker on Sunday. Crying emoji. It didn't work out, but I understand how volunteering is, so I'm not mad at him because it wasn't a paid gig. But even though we started with the historical context, I wanted to, we also as a community on last week's Sunday participated in this more modern version of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Excuse me. On YouTube, it's called The Rise and Stall of DEI, where basically we looked at what was happening in, oh, where did I start? I think I started with the desegregation of the military, but really, I think the story started with, Kennedy's executive order on affirmative action. And then we did a bit of a journey through the life of Clarence Thomas, because the skin that he is in is really rich for the story of affirmative action and his position on it. So we looked at him a little bit as a main character of the space. And then we moved forward towards the corporate response to DEI, and whether or not it was a genuine interest in diversity, equity, and inclusion, or was it really a optics play, a virtual signaling. And then finally, we rounded that out dealing with the issue of the professionalizing of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and this layer of bureaucracy of what would I call it? Democratic diversity bureaucrats that we see both at the corporate structure, at the university structure, the majors that started coming out, and these professionals that created companies, a business, went into classrooms, started teaching, asking students to call them mixed crystal because they're non-binary. And it gave us a chance to really talk about whether or not that is the right space. All of that to say, we as a community have boiled down what diversity, equity, and inclusion stems from, uh, rooted in these two deep philosophies. One I'm calling classical philosophy, and one I will call critical philosophy. You can go back into the replays to see the deep dive. But what I will say is, once again, in this week's version of diversity, equity, and inclusion, the saga continues as it relates to these two deep philosophies. So it will emerge. I won't talk about it because it will speak for itself. With that being said, I see Victoria and Selma are in the building. If you guys want to join me on stage, it's a no pressure space. You're welcome to. Also know that if you're in listen only mode and you prefer a more visual experience to this podcast, this experience, you can click on the link above, and you can check us out on the YouTube channel. My first call to action, since you guys are here, would be to let someone know. It's kind of a challenge to get people to onboard to Clubhouse, but they can certainly check out the YouTube video and see the kind of things that are cooking up over here at the educator's house. Okay, so I wonder if Chloe would come to speak with you. Yeah, holler at me. I see you're on stage, so let me pass you the mic. I see Carmelita as well. I'll send you an invite if you want to join us on stage, but just know that there's no pressure in this space. Okay, I think I see Barely M here as well. So yeah, I like that. Anxious generation is worth discussing. It will come up. Let me just address the audience, and then I'll pass it over to you, Monica, to introduce yourself. This idea of the anxious generation will definitely come up when we move into the new topic around screen time and child development. That might be what you were referring to. So if that's the case, you're definitely in the right place. Stay tuned, because we're leaving this DEI space this week, and we're going to be moving into the screen time and child development space very soon. Good morning also to you, Leticia Wilson. Glad to see you here. I have figured out how to make you a moderator, so I'll be doing that between now and the next show. Okay, I think I've gotten all the housekeeping rules out of the way. Good morning, Monica. Welcome to the space. I'm glad that you have decided to join us. Please introduce yourself. If you want to speak directly to the topic, that's fine. Or if something came up for you, I'll share the mic with you. Please.
Good morning, Kassan. So, was I the one that told you about Chloe Valderi, the theory of enchantment
No,
author?
I just saw it in the chat. You might have mentioned it
So,
anecdotally, but this is the first time that I'm really paying attention to it. You want
all
to tell
right.
me a bit more about it?
Sure. The link I included is her 1 hour plus interview with Jordan Peterson,
Mhm.
where they talk about race relations in the country and how to treat people as individuals and not political abstracts. I thought they have three tenets to the theory of enchantment. She says Trump's new policies of ending DEI have really hurt her business. So I don't know if she'd be willing to come talk to you guys to promote the program. I think it's an excellent one of the best anti-racist programs that I've found, and I'm interested in that. She uses Disney movies and music and modern uh, like fairy tales and things to get her message across about how more alike we are than different, and connecting, just connections. I actually think she should probably reframe her program as connection building instead of diversity, equity, inclusion, because that label, it has fraught with so many
There's layers
different
to it, yeah.
definitions. Right.
Right.
Right. So anyway, I included their video for you to review. I don't have a relationship with her
Okay.
except that I follow her and I appreciate the work she's doing, but maybe if it's coming from a more professional angle
Yeah.
and that she knows that any interviews would be good for her, you know.
Well, it's interesting. I appreciate it. My interest is not to have Educators House be the DEI channel, even though there is a plenty to discuss. But I do want to push forward. So I will check her out. I already have a guest lined up for this week Sunday, which is sort of our last attempt at understanding diversity, equity, and inclusion. But I think to hear Monica say that that Miss Chloe has an anti-racist program that Monica supports definitely piques my interest. So I will check out her video and I will at least drop a line on her. And if she wants to do something in the space, then I'm happy to loop back around. So I certainly appreciate the reference. Adri, the educator, is also here with us. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You have my express permission to exercise your moderator privilege as you see fit, given our recent experience. But in the meantime, I would love it if you would introduce yourself and either respond to the topic or give me permission to cook right into it. The mic is yours.
Look right into it.
All right, guys, let's cook. For those of you who are here, my tarnished reputation, I'm glad to see you. I really appreciate your presence because I'm so new at this. You edify me simply by your presence. So thank you for being here. I'll send you an invite, but as you know, it's a no pressure space because most of our community are, how do I say, in their morning routine, right? So I just want to be a part of that, part of your morning as you get geared up for the day. Okay, guys, listen, we're going to get into it. Is math racist is kind of a question, and I'm going to start with one side of the extreme. I'm going to find some criticism in the middle, and then we're going to end, if time allows, with segments of a longer conversation. But because we're only here for an hour, I think we should just get right into it. So please enjoy this first clip. It's a news clip of a Fox commentator, so you can imagine where his position is, interviewing a person who suggests that uh, math comes out of a racist system. Let me let them speak for themselves. Okay, please enjoy, and we'll unpack it in just a moment. I'm gonna hold right there. Now she got a good point. There was the 3/5 of a person, so they had to do some funny math. Let me let her cook. I just felt triggered there. All right, let me let her cook. I'm sorry. Oh, that's about to go off the rails. Okay, so as you can see, there is emotion behind this. There are some layers on whether or not, and again, I'm going to circle this around. What I've really come to appreciate around diversity, equity, and inclusion is the scope of your deep philosophy. The classics say there's such a thing as objective truth. The criticals say that all truth comes out of a construct. Therefore, we must be critical of the system or the construct itself because the outcomes of that construct have an inherent bias that needs to be addressed. So here we see the two different camps playing itself out once again. And thanks for the reminder, Leticia. Okay, so this is going to be interesting. I see horrible program with the pink ticket. Pink tickets make me nervous. Horrible program. So I'm going to bring you up on stage. I really haven't had a chance to vet what you're saying in the chat, so I'm going to let you speak for yourself.
He's saying that I'm making claims, and I haven't made any claims in this room. It's
Okay.
very weird.
Well,
What's the
let's
title,
center.
though? Where do you get racism?
Hold on, horrible. Hold on. Easy, Tiger. I'm gonna give you the mic. I just want you to know. Welcome to the space. Um, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Please introduce yourself and be gentle with my mic. I'm sensitive about my shit, as Erica Badu would say. Go ahead, sir. The mic is yours.
Yeah, no. So I'm not a teacher, like in terms of actual academia. I didn't get my teacher's diploma, right? You guys have to go to school for education. I didn't do that,
Okay.
right? What I do is I TA, and on top of TAing, right? I do 3 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. I do an after-school program,
So you got some
right?
experience in the space, is what you're saying.
Yeah. But like schooling wise and work wise, my actual career, I'm an electrical engineer, right?
Awesome.
So
Okay.
yeah, so when it comes to this stuff, I immediately be hesitant on why. Like every time we have this discussion, it seems like what we want to do is allow people, right, to be flexible in how they learn, right? That's fine. I'm cool with that, right?
Yeah, come
Like
on,
I
man.
like
Cook. I'm with you. Go ahead. I want to hear your
I
thoughts.
what I'm trying to do is make people that are like me. I
Hmm.
mean, like the down bads, right? The people that start from nothing, right? That
Hmm.
have no one, right? That are dirt poor, right? They feel like their lives are meaningless. I want to give them meaning. I want to show them how important they are,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
When you take away grading, what you're doing is you're taking away the ability to say, hey, you're not good. But you're also taking away the ability to say, hey, you are good, right?
Hmm.
Now, so not all of us are geniuses. I'm clearly not. Like I had friends that would walk circles around me, right?
Right.
They just understood things. Like, I would look at them like, how do you just understand concepts so easily and memorize so quickly and just you're just like a sponge. Like I'm jealous of that, right? But
Yeah.
anyways, long story short,
Yeah. Let's make it
I
short.
did have to. Yeah, I have to. Like hard work pays off. You guys got to understand. I don't care where you are, what color you are, right? This system is like knowledge ends up becoming once you attain it, it becomes quote unquote power. Like it allows you to like any trials and tribulations that racism or whatever the case, sexism, whatever, knowledge just trumps that. That's
Let
it.
me, yeah, I appreciate that. It was a great landing. Stay tuned because I think we're going to have an opportunity to broaden your perspective. I'm gonna loop back around to you a little bit later and see if any of what we discuss updates your construct or your thinking about this issue, especially with you being in the classroom front facing with
Mm.
students. I think it'll be great for us to engage on this topic of grading. Nazi's in the building. As you guys know, we always want to center the voices of our community. So I'll pass you the mic, Nazi. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Catch me up on the conversation. I just joined.
Yeah, let me move the conversation a bit forward, and then I'll loop back around and bring you into it. So what we're dealing with is grading racist? Is math racist? Is sort of the nuanced topic that we're dealing with today. So I'm going to offer this next clip. I don't know if I can get closed captions on this one, so we'll see how it goes. Oh, it looks like it's up here. Okay, perfect. Okay, so as you know, Nazi, because you were here for the last one, we're dealing with sort of the fringe elements of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So the last time we were here on Monday, we talked about the issue of gender and how far we were willing to take this identity politic and support this affirmation culture. Today, I want to look at grading policy and its diversity, equity, and inclusion, and in particular, it's called equitable grading. Are we pushing too far into that? And because you're here, Nazi, I want you to know that on Friday's Homeroom, I want to deal with diversity, equity, and inclusion, the forgotten population, which is the next letter in the alphabet soup of DEI, accessibility. And I think you would be great to speak to that issue, but we'll get to that on Friday. Okay, let's get to this segment, and then it may lay in the groundwork. All right, check this one out. So here we see again this idea that there is no such thing as objective reality. And so the idea that 2 + 2 = 4 might not always be the case. In fact, I saw someone deliver a clip which tried to make logic of it. She said, if you take 1 drop of water and combine it with 1 drop of water and you put them together, what do you get? You don't get 2 drops of water, you get 1 bigger drop of water. So I thought that was a great logical exercise. Let me do this one next clip, and then I think I'll pass it around. Unless you want to speak to it now, Nazi. Did something come up for you?
Well, I was just thinking about how they teach us bases and teacher
Yeah.
math training. They say like in base 2,
It
2
could be
+ 2 might be something
like
else because 2
22,
might
right?
not be in base 2.
Well,
Base 10.
1
Yeah.
0 in base 2 would be equivalent to 2 in base 10, right? Does that make sense?
Yep.
So
Yep.
like 100 in base 2 would be equivalent to 4 in base 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I disagree with what she said, right? What she said, Terrence Howard did this thing. I think he said 1
Yes.
× 1
Equals
1 × 1
1.
is 2 or something.
Yeah. 1 ×
Wait,
1
what? 1
equals
× 1 is
2.
1.
Yeah. 1 × 1 = 2 was his premise, right?
I see what that water drop example is interesting, right?
Really, right? I thought
But
so too.
it's a great thought experiment, right? But what we're doing here is actually incorrect. Like the volume of 1 drop plus the volume of another drop is equal to 2
The volume of 2
times.
drops. You're right.
So that's what. So you could use words really interestingly to sort of make a point that 1 + 1 isn't equal to 2,
I
right?
appreciate that.
But
Actually, if I can pull from there, this idea of wordplay, I think that really is where we get into it. Let me play this next clip, and we'll continue to cook. For the listening lounge, there are a series of articles. This is really the only reason that I brought this up, just to let you know that this isn't just some fringe topic, but people are really struggling through this. And we're going to look at San Francisco as a case study because the rubber met the road. This first one says math professor claims equation 2 + 2 = 4 reeks of white supremacist patriarchy. Let me continue. The next one says, how does race affect a student's math education? A new paper examines the way whiteness reproduces racial advantages and disadvantages. Let me continue to cook. This next article says, racial gaps in math have grown. A school tried closing theirs by teaching all kids the same classes. I don't even know what that means, but let's continue. Modern mathematics confronts its white patriarchal past. Very interesting. Let's continue. Seattle school proposes to teach that math education is racist. Will California be far behind? Next one, math suffers from white supremacy according to Bill Gates funded course. Next one, Oregon again says students don't need to prove mastery of reading, writing, or math to graduate, citing it harms students of color. This is where we are. That's a great place for us to land. Are blacks capable of the same things white people is? Is the question that we're struggling with. I really want to push into the broader experience, but I think honing in on this issue of math, and we have Horrible program here who really understands math. Um, I'm going to loop back around to you and try to ask the critical question: is math racist? Right? There's math and there's the objective math. According to the lady who spoke earlier, her issue isn't that 1 stick plus 1 stick = 2 sticks. That's objective math. That's not the problem. The problem is that math is in a context which is racist. So the idea that they would use math to make a enslaved person 3/5 of a human in order to justify that, the idea that they're pushing a certain demographic of student into, let's call it the STEM fields, and the fact that African American, let's say people of color and women are not moving into the STEM fields is a problem, and society should do something about that. That's where we start to see the layers of race and patriarchy and the system and the man rear its ugly head. So with all of that, I wonder, considering you're on the front lines of math, what are your thoughts about that claim? I yield the mic to you, sir.
I'm gonna let Sister Nazi wants to say something first. Sorry, I apologize.
Yeah, very generous of you. Nazi, go ahead. And if you don't mind, Horrible, I'll also introduce Tide Tutoring. I try to prioritize new voices, and then we'll come back to you. Nazi?
Yes. Excuse me, I have a little bit of cold. What's more racist than that? I mean, I think what do you like? What's that? You're so good at those sayings. You're missing the something for the tree. You're missing the what's that saying?
The
The
forest for the
Forest
trees.
for the trees. Yeah. Yes. That one. The even bigger problem is that when we don't teach the basic skills of math, you're not giving access to this more critical thinking in math. Like, in order for Horrible to be able to think about math the way he thinks about math, he has to be able to count, not just count slowly on his fingers, not just count items one by one. He needs to be able to count to the point where 100 in his mind has a different value than 1,000. Without even counting to 100 or 1,000, he could immediately think of how a value, a meaning, bring meaning to the value of 1,000 better than, just as well as he could bring meaning to a value of 100.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can't quickly bring meaning to the value of numbers by practicing basic counting, then you can't think critically. So if you introduce all this kind of hoopla math before kids are, I should say hoopla, but different kinds of thinking about math, which is all good, but when kids are ready for it. And I think a lot of what you say, Hassan, is critical thinking is good, but our kids, at what age are they really ready for all of this kind of introduction to the idea of different genders, introduction to sexual things, introduction to yes, we want our kids to be well-rounded, we want our kids to be, we don't want them to be ignorant of the society around them, but at what age do we introduce this, and who's responsible for that? So I think teachers make decisions about when to introduce things based on assessment. If you have a regular ongoing progress monitoring assessment, you could see, okay, this kid quickly counts to 1,000 fluently. Now he's ready for another skill. And the assessment, it's like driving a stick shift. You don't just get in the car and drive and jerk the gears all over the place. You look at the gauges. When the gauge goes up, first gear, second gear, okay, now I'm ready to change gears. You have an assessment, a gauge, a measurement for that. And teachers, what they do a lot of times is they want to jump to giving them meaning without making sure that they are ready for it.
It's interesting. Whether it's age, I would offer at what skill set, right? At what level of development. So it might not be an age thing. And the other thing that you said, and then I'll pass it to Thai tutoring. We'll loop back around to you, Horrible. Adri, if you want to jump in, there's always space for you. And then I'm going to kind of push into the meat of what I really want to talk about. We're going to be questioning the assessment itself when we get to equitable grading. All right. So with that said, Thai tutoring, hey, welcome up to the stage. Please introduce yourself. And if you want to speak to what's come up, or if you're present to something else, the stage is yours.
Hey everybody, my name is Nikki, and thank you so much for having me on stage. I love this room and what you guys are doing in here, because it's really interesting to debate all of these different topics and to experience different thoughts and perspectives that people have on, these pretty controversial things. I don't know if they're controversial in any other country except for the United States of America. But, for me, I would say that as a teacher who teaches the older kids, I teach the high school kids, I've seen how the stupefaction of the education system has really done a massive disservice to kids of all different ethnicities and races. And we graduate kids every year that can't read. I had a kid she wasn't a student in my class, but I met her because I was substituting for another educator, another teacher during my duty period. And when I went in there, the kids had finished their work and whatnot, and we were playing. Some of the kids were playing cards, and this one kid asked me if I wanted to play blackjack, and I said, "Sure." Not my favorite game in the whole wide world, of course, but I would play with a kid. So there was a girl sitting at the table with him, and I said, "Do you want to play blackjack with us?" And she didn't want to, and she seemed tense. Her body seemed to recoil a little bit when I asked her to play blackjack, which piqued my curiosity. So I had the sneaky suspicion that she didn't want to play blackjack. And again, this is a class of seniors for context, but I had the sneaky suspicion that she didn't want to play blackjack because there was math involved.
Right.
And we started to play. He dealt me my 2 cards, and I believe I had a 7 and an 8, so 15. And I asked the girl beside me, I said, "So we're trying to get to 21, and I have a 7 and an 8. What does that give us?" And I wanted to see if she really couldn't add the 2 numbers together, and she couldn't. She couldn't do 7 and 8, so I had to count on my fingers and show her how I got to 15. And then there were simpler numbers like 3 and 4 and those kinds of things, and she couldn't do it. And my suspicion was correct, that she didn't want to play blackjack because she couldn't put the 2 numbers together, and she was a senior in high school and has just graduated as of the end of May. So
smooth.
that's all I wanted to share.
No, that was a great share. Smooth levels of assessment. This is what we call master teachery, where we can, I'm going to add that to the lexicon with stupefaction, where we can assess while playing cards, and that creates the opportunity for change, right? Okay, so I'm not going to hog the mic. I'm going to move it to Horrible program, Adri, and then we'll take it from there. Horrible, what's come up for you since we've been cooking, man? Mic is yours.
Oh my God, this is okay. So what Nazi said is very accurate.
Yeah.
Right? You have to learn the basics to start delving into like more advanced mathematics, where we sort of break rules. The concept of a complex number, right,
Hmm.
is something that defies normal arithmetic, right? There's no such thing as the square root of -1, right? But we actually could, once you understand the basics, you can understand why we have the complex number system, right? And it works. In fact, the majority of our technology relies on this. It's kind of beautiful that we're able to manipulate math this way. But to understand how to manipulate math, you have to start by understanding math, right? Okay, so yeah, it's indoctrination, I would say, at a lower level, right? So as you, I would say, even high school, and I would say first and second year is indoctrination.
Mm-hmm.
Bohr model, they're still teaching Bohr model, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not correct, right? There's essentially a actuality to it that we have to dumb down, but they have to understand that to understand probabilistic positioning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we can't actually know where this electron is. But anyways,
Yeah, you go too deep. Let's get this. Keep it accessible for the group.
I so like in terms of racism, right? There is truth to what someone that the news clip that you played was saying,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's the problem. There is a little bit of truth to this, right? So, and I would say it's not math. It would be English or like language, where cultural differences would creep up in certain questions, right? Let's say because we're too close as humans for math to be culturally different. We all have 10 fingers, right? So counting in base 10 comes naturally for us. Now, if there was a group of people that were born, let's just say they just had, let's just say, 4 fingers on each hand, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Base 8 would actually be more natural to them. And then there could be a discussion about whether we should be teaching in base 8 or like octal or decimal, right?
Mm.
But race isn't that different. Like there's not that high degree of difference between races for us to actually have discussion about the actual content of math, right? Pre-calculus and all this stuff, right? Um, that's my point. My point is actually, if they said English is racist, that would make a little bit more sense, right? But yeah, that's it.
Okay, that was a great share. And I think I'm glad that you have a new voice here, because you brought a set of fresh eyes to this topic that I've been unpacking. I think I get too deep into the rabbit hole. So you're kind of helping pull me out, especially as a fellow mathematician and scientist. So I appreciate you. Adrian, has anything come up for you? I don't know if you're available to speak, but I'd like to
Yeah.
give you the mic. Go ahead.
Yeah, a few things have come up to me. I think one big misconception most educators have when teaching math is going from basics to complex, really going from concrete to abstract. I just wanted to kind of put that out there, that to me, that's a big misnomer in the teaching of math, is you're really supposed to be going from the most concrete concept to the most abstract. So if you think of most really complex math, it's highly abstract. So I just wanted to put that out there. It is not, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big disagreement, because generally things that are more concrete are more foundational.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to put that out there. The other thing I wanted to put out there about math is that it's super important to actually be able to recognize patterns That's probably one of the most important things about math. So you go from concrete to abstract, and an ability to recognize patterns is what's really going to serve you. So counting high actually doesn't help you. The ability to recognize the pattern between 1, 10, 100, 1,000 is really important.
Mm,
So those are a couple math things that I just wanted to kind of put out there for people to kind of chew on. Um, there was that. I think that what we're getting into, and some of what Horrible's saying, I don't fully disagree with, but I think the use of math, there's a lot of historical ways in which it has been used in racist ways. So I think if we get outside of whether it as its own thing is or its frequent use, and I think statistics is a very specific subset of math where that is true.
mm,
So those are things, and there's a lot of ways. Mind you, I think it's a lot of other things. One of the first things you learn in statistics, if you take any good statistics class, is how you can use statistics to say anything you want,
yep.
right? And how you
Yeah.
you know, the ability to manipulate it, which I also think that there is a language of math, and I don't think you can completely separate the language of math from the language of how you communicate. I think that's the point Horrible's trying to make, and I don't agree that the separation is nearly as strong as what he's saying, because I do think that how you communicate math is through language as well, and to try
Mm,
and say that they're separate, I don't necessarily fully agree with. I get the premise though, and I don't think the premise is completely off either.
right.
So those are just some of my kind of initial thoughts on the topic.
I'm going to take a moment and do a bit of a reset because we got some real heavy hitters up in here, up in here. So let me do that and then we will move forward. We've got about 20 minutes left, so I want to be respectful of everyone's time, especially during this morning show. I'm going to start over on YouTube. If you guys haven't done so, and if you in the listening lounge are sure you're in listen only mode, you might benefit from clicking on the link above. It takes you to the YouTube live stream of this very experience that we're having. In case you are more of a visual person, you might appreciate that. Over there on YouTube in the chat, Leticia Wilson dropped the word problems. And so I think there are layers to that issue of word problems. And so thank you for that. The next one she discussed was the fine print of statistics. And so I think I'll start with that and how do I say, move into what you were talking about. Yes, I took a business statistics class, and that was the very first issue in the chapter was how easy it is to manipulate. And so what he was focused on was teaching us how to see the validity and whether or not it's a good premise. So it is a powerful tool to manipulate the social side of our society. Okay, let me do this also for the good of the group. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Sean, Lady, Seneb, Lati, Stacy, Joe is in the building. America's in the building. Oh, we got the bangers up in here. I must be doing something right that you guys are here holding space. So I'm so glad that you're here. Sam is up in here. Notorious Bill, my friend RJ is up in here. And of course, Ask GG. I appreciate all of you guys for coming through, holding space. We are here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning. This is your new morning show. So if you could fit us into your schedule as you get ready for the day, I can guarantee you'll be more informed, more empowered. You might laugh a little bit. And so you are definitely welcome here. And I appreciate everyone for their support. There's some new voices that have come up on stage, Zavania and Huey. I want you guys to get in, but if you don't mind, I want to introduce you guys to someone named Joe Feldman. Joe Feldman is the one. I probably should have played for you the news. Okay, here. Maybe this is a good way to do it, but I really wanted to at least summarize what his argument was. He has been credited for this idea of equity grading.
Equity. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know who he is.
Okay.
I can't stand him. But
Yeah,
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 keep going.
yeah.
Keep
Let
going.
me lay out the story for those who may not know. So his thing is we need to do equity grading. It is a component of his anti-racist journey, right? So he already indicates that he's part of this air quotes woke side of things, or the critical theory group is where he comes from. And what he cites is, matter of fact, maybe I can let him speak very briefly for himself, and then I'll probably need to summarize some of it. But let's listen to his voice. Okay, I'm not going to spend too much time, but I did want to share his voice and this idea that when we include non-academic, and if I can really cite him accurately, non-summative evaluations and assessments into the grade book, it actually warps accuracy and creates space for bias. And so having things like participation, engagement, warm up tickets, exit tickets, whether they raise their hand, whether they follow the dress code, all of these things are opportunities to introduce bias into their grade, which warps the accuracy and can either inflate or deflate their grade. So his thing is to be culturally responsive as a grade in terms of the grade book to how do I say means that we need to eliminate the various factors that the student may bring in. So if they turn in their homework late, for example, well, homework's not even graded. If they are not listening, let's say you have an online class and they don't put their camera on, which might be the school's policy or your personal teacher's policy, well, that cannot impact their grade book because perhaps they have a home environment that they don't want to share, or they have to care for siblings, so they're not going to be as present in the chat. Or if they have, they show up late to class, that should not affect their grade. And so his thing is the only thing that should matter is the summative, and students should be allowed to take the summative multiple times. And everything else that we do is just the lead up to this one grade. He's got other aspects. For example, he wants to move to a 0 to 4 grading scale. He wants to, he believes that it's all about intrinsically motivated. He wants to have gradebook audits. He wants to, what else do I have here? 0% should be formative, free retakes for full credit, no homework in the gradebook, no extra credit should be made available. So his concept is let's just grade this one thing and everything else shouldn't matter. I'm not doing it justice, but in the interest of time, I did want to at least let you know what equity, how DEI and the equity piece has made its way into our grade book as a part of this conversation. Okay, thanks for letting me cook. I apologize. Let me deliver this mic. So first, Zarvania Gibbs, thank you, and then I'll go to Huey the Goat. Zarvania, good morning. Introduce yourself, and if something has come up, the mic is yours.
Good morning. Well, I'm Zavania Gibbs. I'm a diagnostician here in Texas, and one thing I wanted to comment on is about, I think Naji wrote in the chat, what I thought was racist in our math happened to be exposure to certain concepts. I can picture, because I was um, my education, especially in in the lower years, were in a predominantly lower income area. And I can tell you that whenever I compared as an adult what I was taught there to like what my husband was taught in his more mid upper class schooling was a bit different. You know, my mom had to supplement our education by getting me tutors and things like that because she thought that I wasn't learning enough. Um, it was exposure. It wasn't that our students there couldn't learn. It's that our students there weren't exposed to the same math that other students might have been exposed to,
Mm.
which honestly caused a bit of struggles whenever I
Yeah.
got a little bit older with math. And so I had to then do some other self-studying to kind of help me out. Like I'm now
Do you
working
have
on
a
my doc.
concrete example? Sorry to
A
interrupt. Do you have a
concrete
concrete
example.
example? Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, like
sure. A concrete example is that um, although in Texas we all have the same teaks to work with, our schools don't all have the same supplies. We don't all have the same
uh
resources. We don't all have the same teachers that have a level of experience that some other students might have.
Mm.
Those are truths. So, like my schools were lacking in resources. We didn't have like a lot of hands-on things that other schools might have had. I honestly saw the huge difference as a teacher.
Mm.
And so whenever I went into lower income schools and then I went into upper income schools, I saw a difference in like what we were exposed to and even my training. Um, and that was the difference that I saw. It wasn't that the kids, lacked the ability to learn. They just weren't taught it. And so on paper, that makes things look a bit different if you're only looking at the paper product. and not like the kid and not like the personalities. And so that's the part to me that could appear to be racist, because now that lessened expectation kind of lowered what those kids were learning.
Now, I want to jump in here because I do have a case study. It actually was inspired by Tide's testimony. And Huey, I'm going to go straight to you. Thank you, Zarvania, for your share. And I hope that you come back because we are just getting started and we got so many good topics that I think you can weigh in on. Two things. One, like you, Tide, I graduated one. I know your student wasn't yours, but I had a student in my chemistry class who was functionally illiterate and innumerate. And I received so much pressure from the administration, from the family. The chemistry was required for graduation, and the kid could not do chemistry. I was a first year, maybe second year, but I think I was a first year in the classroom. And my attitude was, no, this kid needs to come to summer school. He needs to get additional training. But I didn't have my scope. My scope wasn't that wide. And so I didn't realize that it wasn't chemistry. The boy couldn't read and he was innumerate. And so I ended up graduating him. And to this day, as you can tell, because I'm still testifying about it, I felt some type of way. It was not the right thing to do, but I fell under the pressure of those who were above me. And because I didn't have much experience, I went with it. And it haunts me to this day that I certified that this kid passed the class when in fact he didn't. I also have an experience, Zarvania, with the difference in income. I was teaching in a community where on the one hand, the school that I was at was terribly underfunded and it came with a lot of problems. And then I ended up moving to Falls Church, Virginia, which was terribly overfunded. And there was a significant difference in terms of the resources, the manipulatives, the number of staff that they had. I had one student who was able to have a paraprofessional with them all day rather than you get, if you know the world of education, you know what I mean. So I resonate with a lot that is coming up on stage. And I wonder if I resonate with Huey the GOAT. Huey, welcome onto the stage. If you are horrible, are getting value out of this, I would recommend you, Bill, Mark, Mina, Laddie, Lady, turn in that pink ticket. Appreciate it. Great guy. Huey, let's go straight to you. The mic is yours.
Oh, right. I hope this isn't too much of a pivot or doesn't make the conversation too discursive, because I kind of wanted to circle back to the idea of language and comparing math to a language. And like philosophically, math is sort of like described as an axiomatic language. And in that analogy, I guess we could see why or how the same difficulties that apply to learning a language, right, contextually and culturally, might apply necessarily to the conversation of math is racist. So my general approach to conversations like this, whether I agree or disagree with the proposition, is to try and steelman it and approach it with as much good faith as possible. And so when I hear propositions or proclamations that, like, for example, math is racist, I try and contextualize it and interject, right? So contextualize it for me. Just for full disclosure here, I did not school in the American schooling system, so some of this might be a reach. I did my education in Cambridge or Oxford, the Cambridge-Oxford system, and then eventually GCSEs, and then I went on to do.
Give us the short version, Huey. Give us a short version.
Short version of my submission?
Yes,
or
please.
Short version of my.
I only have
Okay,
6 minutes left before I land the room. So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay, so then I'll be as quick as possible then.
appreciate you.
The point that I was trying to make is that, like, language, much like mathematics, and analogously, requires some kind of like contextual understanding in order for you to sort of like really gain the full potential and teaching of it, right? So, for example, idioms, when you're using idioms to educate or teach, you kind of need to have like a contextual understanding to sort of like access that ability to understand the abstraction through the idiom, right? And so one of the issues happens when, like, you're teaching math to a group of people that have been forced to assimilate with no real like effort to inculcate that people's culture. And that's why I think, for example, it's fair to point out that math might be racist. In other words, what I'm simply saying, and I'll end here, is that to some degree, math is racist primarily because it doesn't, very oftentimes when it comes to the teaching of it, it doesn't always factor in the context from which Black people necessarily have to come from.
It's an interesting point. In fact, I saw some clips, I didn't include them, which used math in more, how would I call it, culturally responsible ways, right? So the buying of the sneakers as an algebra example, and the basketball game, that sort of a thing. So let me pass it on to Nazi. I know she wanted to respond perhaps to something Huey said, and we're going to land a plane with one final clip, and we'll do a round of final thoughts. So Nazi, go ahead, man.
All right, so two things I wanted to say. One is that the origin of this perspective comes largely from the anthropological study of education. And this started in this, it had probably not started, but it went full-fledged in the 60s when there was, a lot of segregation, sharecropping, families that had the families that were Black and sharecropping, their culture was just so extremely different from the white families who were factory workers. So both were poor, but they had such different types of everyday experiences. And there was a book called Ways with Words by Shirley Bryce Heath. And she took different activities. She went and lived in 3 different communities as an anthropologist. She just became part of the communities. All of the communities were in close location in North Carolina. She went to one community where it was all Black and no sharecropping. And she went to another community that was all white and it was factory. Both of those were poor. And then she went to a middle class community where there were Black and white. And she just illustrated how kids from the sharecropping community would have just a whole different perspective on the whole thing. Like, one, 1 + 1 is 2. So she would show like a fish bowl, for example, and there'd be 3 fish, and they're like, how many? And the kid might say 4. Well, there's 3 fish and a fish bowl, so that was 4. Like they had different ways of thinking about the way, of doing math, about several things. I mean, I could go on and on, but this book is so intriguing. If you have opportunity to read it, I would definitely recommend it. It's an easy read. Ways with Words.
Yeah.
That got us just as
Tell me the name of the book, Nazi. What's the name of the book?
It's called Ways with Words.
All right, I'm going to try to find
It's
it.
basically saying that Black people from the sharecropping community actually develop language in a developmental sequence differently than white people. White kids usually they go ba ba bee bee boo boo boo, and then after they babble for a little while, they say mama, dada, one word, up, cookie, and then they add 2 words. Well, Black kids don't learn to talk that way. So of course they don't learn they don't learn school the
Can I
same
help
way.
with an example? If I say something like this, 3 to 7, does this might be a cultural difference between whether you mean 3 inclusive to 7 inclusive, 3 inclusive to 7 not inclusive, right? So when I say 3 to 7, right, what do I actually mean? Do I mean 3, 4, 5, and 6, or do I mean 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7?
Yeah,
Right.
I
That's a good example.
yeah,
I
like
guess.
my dad is Persian, and they'll say like, "How old are you?" And you count the year you're on. I know that always drove me crazy.
Yes. Correct.
Great
So,
example.
the second thing I wanted to say is, as a diagnostician, we give IQ tests, and the whole difference between language and math is concepts. So when it gets down to a concept, it's the same thing. So when you're developing concepts, the first thing you do in language or math is, so in Sesame Street, they always say, one of these things is not like the others. 3 of these things are kind of the same. And they do that like every day because it's such an important concept for both language and math, is because you're making categories and classifying, and that is a cognitive skill that happens in both language and math. And so on these IQ tests, and I actually interviewed a guy named Carl Romstead who who created an IQ test that does not, it has the same results for Black or white. There's no other IQ test that has the same results for Black or white within 2 or 3 points. Most of them are about 11 points lower for lower income or minority students. So this, because like Huey said, this is what he calls contextual reasoning. Reasoning and non-contextual. And when you do that, then you see the different, you get more consistent results.
Uh,
And so, an example, a concrete example for you is one of the pictures that we usually have to show the kids is four pictures. Three of them are shirts, one of them is pants. One's a t-shirt, one's a polo shirt, and one's like a button down shirt. So they'll ask kids which one's different, and one kid might point out, well, the t-shirt is different, when the right answer, which you would think culturally, might be
the
the
pants,
pants.
right?
But then you ask the kid, well, why did you pick the t-shirt? And they would say, because it doesn't have buttons. Now,
Mm.
who trained kids to classify and categorize by pants or shirts versus buttons and no buttons? The buttons and no buttons is sort of a more creative, self-driven way to
But
to
let's
um
let me
yeah,
push into that a little bit because where I come from in my household, buttons go to church. My kids
right.
wear, t-shirts and pull-up pants. There were no buttons until he reached a certain age. And so it could be a very practical. And let me do this if you don't mind, because this room is absolutely blown up. And I think it's Huey's fault because he's like probably the most popular person on the stage right now. Um,
I want to question Huey though, in a bit.
Okay, no problem. I want to let me be respectful of people's time because I do have some professional educators and they do need to get ready for their class. So what I'm going to do for everyone who's here, I'm going to formally land this plane, but clearly there's a demand here, so we'll do a bit of an after party and that'll give us some time to sort of unpack. And so I can yield a little bit of time, but I want to give greeting to the folks who are here. Leah, I see you're here. I kind of don't want to bring you up. I love you. and
Oops, I'm sorry. I sent him an invite so I can
Okay,
push him
well,
down
come
if he
on up. No,
accepts
no,
it. I'm
no, it's fine.
sorry.
It's fine. You may not get as much time to speak. Depends on how the after party goes. But there's so many people here. Oya, Chuck, Mina, Lady, Stacy, David, Doctor, and Doctor. Amunette is in the building. Bow, bow, bow. Leticia Lewis is in the building. Bow, bow, bow. I'm glad to see all of you guys here. So this is Homeroom. You're welcome. We're here every morning, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We do about an hour morning show, 4 to 5 a.m. Pacific, 7 to 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. What else can I say? I have a YouTube channel, so if you want to check out the live play or any of our replays, you can go to my YouTube at Educator's House. You can check that out as well. I would direct your attention up to the top. If you support this mission, maybe you want to support it financially. So you can click on that link. I don't have a cool, snazzy, slick request to get your support, but if you find value here and you want to support this mission so I can continue to do this work full time and bring you this kind of space, please support our Kickstarter. I have a goal. You can check it out on the site. It may not be for everybody, but if one or two of you decide, yeah, I like what this guy is doing, that would reach my goal. I have 2 people per session that I want to reach in terms of getting financial support. I have an investor. He's given me some goals, and so that's why I'm sharing all of that. Okay, so with that said, let me play my last clip and then we will land this plane. I'm going to forego the closing remarks because we're going to keep the after party going for those that are available. And then we will take it from there. So here's my final clip that I had about Mr. Joe's attempt at doing equitable grading in the classroom. And we'll close with this. Here we go. Let's go. That's a great way for us to end. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks. I'm going to formally close this down. We're going to keep the room open, but I would just want to give permission to my fellow educators who actually have shit to do. That if you need to leave, like, it's totally cool. But because of the space that we're holding, I think we're just going to, keep this party going. What's interesting, and then I'll open the stage up, and Adrian, you know, uh, you can invite people up if you do need to leave. I'd appreciate your support. Um, this issue of the
I'm
layer.
good right now.
Okay, cool, perfect. This issue of the layer of bureaucracy has been one of my main criticisms regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the idea that this guy has made $3 million to push this concept is a powerful one. And I also want to give him credit because I listened to his 1 hour. They did a 1 hour dissertation where he kind of introduced the concept to people at a particular school district. And if you sit in it with him, it kind of makes sense. There's a part of it that if you follow the logic, it's almost like the Marvel universe. If you kind of get into the universe, it does make sense. Like, okay, people can fly in this universe. So I resonate with how tempting it is to be like, I don't want to be a racist. I totally understand the different contexts. Like, you'd have to get into it. I won't do all of that. What I will do is open up the stage one more time. I think Huey might have been the last one to speak, so maybe I'll come back to you. But if anyone else wants to come up onto the stage and join this conversation, you're more than welcome to do so. My co-moderator will bring you up and you can join the conversation. Okay, so with that said, Huey, would you like to kick off this little after party that we've got going here?
I'm not exactly sure where I'd start. I think somebody had a question for me and wanted.
Yeah.
To,
Okay. We can start here, and it's already going to get really, really toxic. But I don't.
I'll just say it's the after party, so let's feel free to lean in.
All right, sweet. Okay, so you said that
for my people on
there are
YouTube,
cultural differences
Leticia,
in
what do you
how we
think? Do I
could,
keep this
let's
on,
say,
or do I
teach a
move the
concept, right?
conversation along
But there's cultural differences
without YouTube? Tell me your
right?
thoughts.
Like we're okay. We're on board with that. I
Audio.
agree too, by the way, right? But I want you.
Okay, I just cut off the audio. I don't know if you can hear me, Leticia, or if you're still here. Should I continue to pipe this portion in because it's gonna get toxic? Might not necessarily represent the house that well, or it might. I don't know. Hit me up in the chat and let me know if I should land this plane and stay true to the hour, or if we should keep this party going. Okay, so for everyone in the YouTube, I think my instinct says I should let this go and let the party continue over on the app because it could go in unusual places. So I haven't heard back from Leticia, so I'm going to go ahead and land this plane. Thank you, guys. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Move the conversation along. I don't know what that means. I'm not sure what that means. In the live stream, landed. Yeah, okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you guys for coming. We've been on this multi-part experience on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Go check out the back channels and the replays to get fully caught up. We're going to land this plane on this Sunday where, spoiler alert, I want to talk about the unspoken aspect of diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is the A part of this alphabet soup called accessibility. I don't think we actually recognize enough that those who are differently abled and physically disabled, have learning differences. That's the part of diversity, equity, and inclusion that I think is unfortunately being overlooked. And so I want to spend some time there because we spend so much time talking about the trans issue, the race issue, and all of these things that I think we're missing perhaps our most vulnerable aspect of society who really does need the protection. Whether you're one of the objective people and you say objectively true, well, their disability can be objectively measured. Or if you're in a systems perspective and you say this is a poor outcome, either way, students who are differently abled and disabled need to be included. They need to feel like they belong. They are and represent diversity. And we must do what is equitable so that they can have full access to our society. So with that said, I hope to see you guys on Sunday. But before that, we'll be back on Friday to lay the groundwork for Sunday. So if that's interesting to you, be sure to stay tuned. I appreciate you guys on YouTube. Peace, peace, peace.